Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 480, recorded live on Sunday, July 16th. Well, maybe live. We're not exactly sure. Twitch seems to be having some problems today. So we'll see if that...
It says you're offline.
Yeah, it may or may not make it there. But if not, we'll record it pseudo-ly live on Sunday, June 16th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have from the Damsels of DDO, Sahba Jade. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had Mithri and Lessa on 2 weeks ago. Now we have Sahba Jade on this week. And let me tell you, the tech writer requirements were a lot easier to handle this week. In any case, let's see, the screenshot for the week. Guard Vivand welcomes the next generation of battle engineers in the 324th screenshot of the week. I've said this a few times every once in a while. If you really want to get your picture or your screenshot picked as a screenshot of the week, timely pictures tend to be selected. So if you know something's coming out, you can go on Lemania and take a picture of it and kind of figure something out, or do something thematic for what's coming out, you probably have a better chance of winning. Holiday theme ones as well. If Night Revels is going on, take a picture of Night Revel stuff, and you'll drastically boost your chances of getting a
Did you get anything if you're picked as the screenshot besides
you
having
get 500 points.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, I think there is actually kind of a competition thing that goes on with that. It's a nice screenshot, though. Very interesting perspective. That is a giant avatar for
Yes, it is.
screen. So, we like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberAirs, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will be this weekend. It's going to be a recorded show because I'm recording it earlier in the week. But it's going to be an Ask the Devs show, so excited about that. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages. I am at DDOcast on Twitter. It on Facebook. Those are basically the two that I use. I don't really use Google Plus anymore. I'm not sure if anyone uses Google Plus anymore. Probably someone does, but not me. But you can also check out DDOcast.com. We also have a calendar that you can subscribe to if you want to be kept more or less up to date. I'm usually pretty good about that, keeping that calendar up to date. The last month and a half, I was kind of less good about doing that in a timely fashion because it was just a really busy time. But in any case, on the podcast this week, we could talk about update 36. It's 36, right? Yes.
Yes.
Update 36 hit live this week, so we can talk about that. It's perhaps the lengthiest set of show notes I've ever seen for a non-expansion update.
It goes on for pages.
Yeah, it's impressive. A lot of kind of quality of life bug fixes. I think they have interns for the summer, or at least they have Linabelle for the summer. So a lot of work being done there. We're also going to be talking, our main topic this week is going to be about spreadsheets. Not necessarily everything we're going to talk about has to be, quote, a spreadsheet. We're really talking about taking notes, keeping track of things, what you might want to keep track of, how you might want to do that. What are some tools that you can use in that regards? So, Sahba, what do you use spreadsheets for in DDO?
Well, I do it for a leveling guide. I have everything. Each of my characters has their own leveling spreadsheet, so I know what I'm going to take at what level. And since I've been playing so long, I kind of make my builds, put them on this spreadsheet that I have a generic version of, and then adapt it depending on what classes they're going to be. And everything is in there: skills, feats, stats. I even have the looks, and I know you wrote this down, but I have the looks of which number I picked for like the hair and the hair, what row and column the hair color is, that kind of thing. So everybody is exactly the same. And then I also have a flagging spreadsheet and a raids flagging spreadsheet. And I have an item spreadsheet. And I also have one that I tweak every once in a while, which gives me where I play around with the weapon damage. So depending on the weapon I'm using, I can calculate how much damage it's going to do.
which can be complicated depending on how far
Right.
you
So
want to get
that
into that.
that takes a lot of effort when I want to get back into it. Yeah.
If you want to learn how to do weapon damage and comparisons, I actually several years ago now did a 16-part blog series on how to calculate weapon damage, and it was very geeky and very extensive.
Right. Well, I didn't see it, but that's the kind of thing that I like to
Yeah,
get out my notebook and figure out on my own. And the easiest way for me to do it, it might not be the way you do it. We're going to come up with the same result, most likely, or similar. Um,
maybe.
but
I did.
um,
I did not come up with the same result that most people would have for what weapon to use against, or whether or not a lightning two or a mineral two is better to use against Horoth. So I did not have the same conclusion that everyone else does.
so when you were playing and you used the one that you thought was better, do you like the numbers and everything and how well you did?
I'm very confident in the math that I did. It was more. The difference basically came down to if you calculate average damage, I was calculating it in order. If you're gonna like really do the math, if you want
Right.
to include critical damage, you also have to include if you roll a one because you have to calculate.
Sure.
And the numbers that everyone that people tended to use do not include miss chances. How many times you miss, they kind of gloss
Oh,
over
mine
that. So,
does.
in any case,
So
it can be pretty useful for that.
um,
Spreadsheets can.
the
So.
I used to be very active in my guild, so we'll talk about your first topic there. So I absolutely have a raid flagging spreadsheet, and every one of my characters that's raid capable, I have um, a sheet just dedicated to which quest I have to flag for the raids, and then how many times another sheet for how many times they've actually done the raid, so I know when I'll get to like 20 and get my special end reward, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have a flagging tab in my spreadsheet, but I used to track like each thing that they had to do, but then
Hmm.
I kind of went away from that and changed it so I just basically black out the square. I'm using Excel for my spreadsheet, so it's just
Yeah.
a little spreadsheet file. But I black out the square for if they're flagged for it. And then I also started in that same spreadsheet. What I do is I write down what difficulty they've run it on, so I know if we're gonna run something on elite. This I don't really have a character that necessarily needs something specifically out of there. What who needs the favor, kind of a thing,
Right.
which is pretty helpful.
Now, do you have it um, in your character spreadsheet, or is this a dedicated raid?
It's just
Yeah.
that tab is just for flags, and it doesn't. It's mostly raids, but it also includes like can they get to Evening Star
Right.
on there. So there's a few more things on there. Actually, that might be the only extra one that's there. But usually the other stuff, it's because raids. If you need to be able to flag to run it, and you used to. I mean, aside from the ones that have the raid runes, you basically need to be able to run it to get the loot. It's not always true anymore. And I don't include the raids, obviously, that don't require flagging, because that would be kind of silly. But that's how I do the raid and flag part. I kind of ignore like into the depths. I don't track that or anything like that.
Right.
So
And then I make little notes on my raid flagging the spreadsheet itself, like for Sid when she was doing a certain life, and I was just going to TR. I was like, okay, get through the epics, don't flag, just go into TR. So I would know, don't even bother doing the flagging quests.
sure. So you talked a little bit about your characters. So go into a little more detail. What do you keep track of for your characters?
Well, I have from 1 to 20 listed what I'm going to take at each level
And when you
and
say
how
that,
much
are you talking like you track skills and feats?
skills, feats. I do ability scores, base, tomes,
Mhm.
items, feats, and enhancements. Definitely skills. Um, I also have a section where I have like I'm looking at Karen. She's my thrower, so I figure out how much double shot she's going to get. what sneak attack bonus she's going to get, what her range power is, and then I also have how much damage she's going to do per attack.
I mostly just keep track of feats. Feats and starting stats are like the two things that I keep track of. And if there's something specific that I need to get by a certain level, then I'll note that as well. So say that for what's the can't remember what's up in my head now. The epic archery feat requires combat archery requires like a dexterity of 21 or something like that.
Right.
So I might notate that this character needs to have a dexterity of such and such by this point in time.
Right.
Or things will break down. So I'll keep track of stuff like that. I don't generally keep track of much more than feats these days. Sometimes I'll write down skills, but at this point, for me, it's pretty obvious what skills I'm going to be taking. I'm familiar with the skills and the system, and I've built a lot of characters, so it's not a big deal for me to remember what skills I need to take. Now, having said that, I have forgotten to take a skill on a lesser reincarnation before, but only once so far in the last 2 years. I don't tend to keep track of as much stuff about my character. It's mostly like what I need to remember how to build the character if I want to build it again, or I might plot out. Again, the feats is kind of where I find I need to really pay attention to where I'm plotting things out.
Right.
They're also kind of harder to change, so stats to a certain extent too, but
I kind of I've reincarnated my characters a lot, so I tried different. Even though it might be Rogue, Monk, Ranger, for Karen for her last build, I also tried just Rogue Ranger for a thrower, and I tried a
sure.
Rogue Ranger Monk with more Rogue levels than Monk levels. So I have all those builds in my spreadsheet, and I'm making little comments about why I liked it this way or didn't like it this way and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I tend to do not multi-class builds, pure classes for the most part, so it helps with the bookkeeping a lot.
It's easier.
Yes, it is. That's why I'm only keeping track of feats generally. There's reasons for this. Now, having said that, I have for some of the classes, when my fighter was a 12-6-2 split, I paid attention to what level do I take each thing.
Right.
Because then I had to pay more attention, and this kind of came out more for feats for me, is whenever do I want to take this feat, what level classes do I need to take to make that happen? So that's kind of where that goes in. But
you have to worry about your BAB too, because you can't take improve crit if your
right,
BAB isn't
exactly.
so high.
Which is really that and stats are the linchpin of when I can take things. It does. My builds tend to be simpler than a lot of people's builds, so I totally get where you're coming from on I'm going to track all of this information. So basically, if you think about what stuff do you, for recommendation, if you're going to start tracking your own stuff, what do you need to remember to make sure your build, what's important to you to make sure your build works well? So you do that. I know some people, I don't know if you do, but I know some people will even track gear at certain levels.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah, okay.
I have a spreadsheet because I do TR a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So mostly for epics, because my characters can practically wear anything in heroics and do fine. But once they get to epics, every level I have a column of what they're going to wear on each piece of their body and when I'm going to swap it out at which level.
I should maybe consider that just from the standpoint that sometimes it takes me a little while to get the gear out of the bank. And I just kind of go through the reincarnation cache and I'm like, I would have thought I had a level 20 helm.
That is why I do it, because the cache isn't in any kind of order.
Yep.
It would be great if it was in level order. That would be easier for me. But this way I just look at my spreadsheet and go, okay, I'm supposed to have this on at this time, and I go look for it in my reincarnation cache.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. So we talked about raid flying. We talked about character. You mentioned tomes briefly. I actually have a tab specifically for tomes of all the various kinds. So it doesn't, stat tomes, fate tomes, XP tomes, all the skill tomes, and then the ones that you can get from the mysterious remnants. I have a spreadsheet that shows me all of that information.
Right.
And now this started when you couldn't just look at your feats list and find out what you had. So there was a problem there of trying to keep track of stuff. It was a lot harder to figure out. I still do it mostly from the standpoint that if I find a tome, I say, oh, who do I want this to go on? I can reference my spreadsheet. Or I don't need this tome, so bye-bye.
I do the same thing. So I have what I have is a tomes tab, and in it I keep track of all my characters, what they're doing right now, what tomes they've taken, and then underneath that I also have how many past lives they've had, which ones I'm going for. So it's kind of more inclusive, not just tomes, but I definitely have tomes in the bank, and it lists every single tome that I have, ready for the next person who needs it.
So you're going to keep track of what tomes you have that have not been eaten.
Yes.
Right. I used to keep track of gear that I had in random places, and I stopped doing that a while back. Actually, quite a while back now, because I just wasn't utilizing it. I used to take a lot more notes. So, if you find that you're taking notes that you don't seem to use anymore, right, feel free to toss those or stop tracking them. See, what else do we take notes on?
Well, talk about gear. I have a spreadsheet, a character spreadsheet that I have what gear they're going to do at which levels. But I also have one for current gear that I want my characters to have, and this is not split up by characters. It's an all-encompassing one. So it might be that at level 30, I want Sid to have this. So it's a wants page, basically, that I can know what I'm trying to work for.
I actually have that broken down by character, although it's all in one spreadsheet. It's all on one page of my spreadsheet. So then across the top, it has a grid of characters by raids or specific. I mean, it's really mostly raids. And then I have in various squares. I'll black out the squares that they don't want anything from there anymore, and then the other ones I have. What they're looking for, and then I actually even color code it. So, like, what's a good example? This one's actually outdated. One of my characters, I marked that the rapier and staff from Caught in the Web, and then I highlighted a different color to indicate that sure they would like it. I'm not gonna actively go for it, kind of a thing.
Okay.
So I've done that. And if I'm actually looking at my spreadsheet, there's probably 5 different ways I'm actually marking that same thing right now.
You want to make sure you get it right?
Well, no, I mean like that same idea that there's an item out of this raid for that this character would theoretically use, maybe, but it's not something that I'm necessarily trying to get.
Okay.
So that's where I'm showing that in a number of different ways, so it's a little weird, but it's all there. Depending on but then underneath that, I have by character, I have a list of the things that they want,
Right.
Or it's not just things they want. There's also some goals there. So favor is a part of that. It's like whenever I reincarnate, there's a set number of favors that I would like to get. So I will keep track of that, right?
Well, speaking of that, when I reincarnate, I basically have a leveling guide, and that's where the favor is going to come in.
Sure.
'Cause I know which quests I'm going to do, how much XP I'm going to get, what bonuses I'm going to get for the XP, which nowadays don't quite really need that because there's so much XP out there. But the favor part of it's the important part.
Yeah, I just write down that I want to get that this character still needs House K favor and Coin Lord favor, and that or the other kind of favor. So,
Right.
But then what I do is I have for items every time a new update comes out, and one just did, I will go through the new items. And like, oh, this item, for each item, who would want this? Does anybody want this? And if it's yeah, they really want that, then I write it down under their names, and then I just kind of keep a running list, and it kind of changes, and sometimes delete things and never make them because I don't really care anymore, and they become outdated.
Right.
But that's how I
Yeah,
keep track of that.
I have one of those too. I'm looking at my U23 items, so you know how long ago that was. And I just have a list of all the items, who has it, who wants it, and what it actually does for, and where you can get them.
Yeah, I just
Um,
keep track of this character might want this item. Some of them want multiple items, so I don't really pass items back and forth a lot. Um, that would require either a lot more bookkeeping that I want to do, or I would lose them a lot, and I've actually lost plenty of things.
mhm.
Like, did you know that you can put a hireling in your crafting storage? Pink. I couldn't find my starter hireling for about 2 months because I hid it in there. Go figure.
In the crafting part of it?
Uh-huh.
Wow. No, I didn't know
You
that.
can put a hireling in there. You can also put augments in there.
That I knew.
And jeweler's toolkits will also go in there. So, at least that starter hireling you can put in there. I haven't tried other
Well,
hirelings, but
I don't know if it's just me, but there's a bug when I use hirelings. If they go into the bank, when they come out of the bank, it doesn't matter if they have an hour or 2 minutes, they're going to run out in less than a minute.
that's
So I don't
interesting.
bank
I've
them anymore.
never had that happen. In any case, so that's what I keep. So it's not just gear wants. It's like, I guess I could call them life goals for the different characters
Right.
of what they're trying to get. Another thing I like to keep track of. So I have an overarching kind of punch list that kind of breaks down a few things a little bit more that I haven't really used for a while. But what I like to do is crafting. So a good example of this would be, and I'm not talking about Canvas crafting generally, but the last one I made a spreadsheet for was slavers crafting. I also tend to do it if I'm making some challenge items. I'll kind of break it out. The reason why I do this is because I can go through and say, okay, this character wants this, and then I go across the line and list all the ingredients, and underneath that I can list how many I need. And then because I'm in Excel, I can say, hey, make a formula that sums all this up and says this is how many I need. And then in another
Right.
column, I can say this is how many I got. And every time I get more, I just keep adding numbers, right? And then in all caps,
Right.
it says I still need this many. And then if I really want to make myself feel like I'm never going to get there, I can then divide it based on you can take the average of how many you get, and then take that and compare it to how many I need, and then it'll tell me that you need to run this another 50 times. At which point I cry and
But you still do it, right?
maybe
Maybe.
depends. Depends if I can find a workaround. But yeah, I do a lot of it. So
I didn't keep I do have a spreadsheet for my crafting now, but I didn't start it until the new can of crafting came out. And I do it just the way it sounds like you do it. I list everything I need, and I know how much of each item I need to craft my gear.
Canvas crafting for me just says this is what I want to craft. What do I still need to craft it? I need research notes or a blister beetle. And if I ever get motivated enough to actually go find them, I'll actually look it up and go find them.
Oh, if I have 5 or 10 minutes, I sometimes run those short quests that'll get me those things.
Yeah. So that's what I use. I really like leveraging it for that because it helps to keep track of how much I need. Now, look, inevitably it's wrong. After a while, I just forget to. It's really late, so I just log out really fast when I don't update it, and then. But then it's pretty easy to just craft in what you need and delete what you don't need anymore, and just make a new number for how many pieces you have of something, and you just keep going, start over. So it's not so bad. Let's see. Anything else that you keep track of?
No, I think we covered almost everything.
So what advice do you have for someone who doesn't use any spreadsheets? What should they track? And how to start doing that?
Well, it depends on whether they're into Excel or not, right? I can't imagine. I can't do things on the fly, so I have to plan things ahead of time. That's just me. And I know a lot of people don't need to do that. But I would definitely track my character from 1 to 20. What feats they need, if it's new kind of character, what skills they need, what tomes they're gonna have, all that kind of stuff. That would be the first thing I would track, and it's the easiest thing to track.
Yeah, a little pre-planning, at least with feats, will get you a long ways and forgive a great number of mistakes you could make for your character. This is
Yep.
where people generally mess up: is they need to take one feat before they can take another feat, but then they don't reach the stat requirement or the base attack bonus requirement or the stat or the other requirement in time, and then it throws everything off, and you run into problems. Or you take your levels in the wrong order. I would say if you're gonna keep track of characters that you think you might want to repeat for whatever reason. Maybe you like it for your racial past lives, or this is what your base build is going to be. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You don't have to do it in a spreadsheet. There's character builders that are great. I tend not to use them just from a standpoint that they track a lot more stuff than I need to track personally. But I know a lot of people find a lot of benefit out of using those, so I'm not trying to discount them at all. They can be very fantastic tools.
Hmm.
Something we didn't mention, I want to mention, sagas. For a while,
Oh yes.
I actually got it from somebody else on the forums. You could make your own version of it, and I even had to edit it a little bit to add in the extra saga that got added later. I tend not to keep track of it anymore for sagas, but I was for a while keeping track of sagas, and it was pretty slick spreadsheet because you could go to one tab would say what difficulty you ran each quest on for each character, and then the next tab it would automatically kind of calculate what you still need to run to get that saga and what your score is currently and stuff like that.
Cool.
I think these days I tend to be less concerned about that because I don't tend to be running a lot of the quests that are saga quests anyways. And if I am doing that, then I tend to run them all together anyways.
Together, yeah, so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, it's just kind of the way that people tend to run stuff, right? If
Right.
you're running Giant Hold, you're probably at level 13, 14, or in Epics, and you're just going to run, either going to run just the flaggers, in which case you can come back later. And there's places in the game that you can go and figure it out anyways. Although if there is a quest that I know I need to run on a specific character, I might write it down. But I tend to, I personally have the capacity to remember I need to run this quest on this character because it's a big enough flag, right? That, oh, if I run this quest on this character, then I get this saga reward, and I'll remember it because that's just enough of something to remember it by.
Mm-hmm.
I still can't remember where I put my last silver bow, but you know, it's enough of a thing to latch onto that I can remember. I don't have to write, but still, I might write it down on a piece of scratch paper. By the way, so we're talking about spreadsheets too, and I would say just having a notepad near your computer is handy because you can write things down for later. Maybe you see an item that someone loots, you say, "Oh man, I really want that." You can write it down and then add it to your spreadsheet later, or just put it on a sticky note and cover your wall with sticky notes if you
There you go.
prefer that method.
Great idea.
It's an option. It just kind of depends on what you want to track. So. The other thing you can do too, particularly with Excel, if you're using an actual spreadsheet, is you can have fun with the formulas that you find on the forums. So one of the ones that I did is I actually have the PRR calculation formula,
Mm-hmm.
and I plugged that in, and I have two sections or like two versions of it, right? So I can actually compare PRR between two different levels if I want to. So, and that just helps me if I can choose +1 to damage, or I can choose +3 to PRR. Okay, well, let me plug in the two different numbers for PRR. Oh, it's like 0.2% difference. I'll take the damage, kind of a thing. So.
I should add that to mine. I mean, I write down what PRR I expect, but I don't do comparisons of anything, so I should do that.
Yeah, it was one of those things that it's one of those weird things that I actually did more for other people. I get a lot of, when people are asking, "Oh, should I take this or this?" I'm like, well, what's your PRR? This, okay. Well, then I can just plug it in really quick and say, okay, well, this is how much benefit you can get from that. Like, oh, I don't. That's not very much. I'm gonna go take the damage instead, or something like that. So, just kind of depends on what they're going for. And that kind of covers everything. I will say, kind of the clothing thing, I do use a lot of color in my spreadsheets, which is kind of funny if you know me, because I don't tend to use a lot of colors. But I do find in notes that making things different colors, even if I don't necessarily have a key, I can recognize or kind of suitably remember what the colors mean for the most part, or by comparing them to other things that are in the area. So
I'm going through most of my sheets, and I don't have much color at all besides white, gray. And on the flagging, I have green because they're flagged. That's
no, I've
about it.
got I'm just kind of looking at my want list, and my bard, his name is one color because it indicates kind of the priority of playtime,
Hmm.
sort of. There's really just two colors for that, but then there's the first three things on the list are all three different colors, and I actually know that all three of those colors mean more or less the same thing. That is like, this would be
Okay.
nice to have, but it's a bauble, a death word, clicky, and an epic death card. Those are all kind of things that, like, oh, this character could actually use these, and I'm not motivated enough at all to actually go and farm them.
Got it.
I couldn't tell you why there's three different colors, but uh, there you go. There's another color for I have this item. It's just in the shared bank, and not on the character. Or there's also some that are like, hey, upgrade this thing, uh, just to kind of pop them out a little bit more from the crowd, I guess you could say. That's kind of the general idea with the colors. Make it stand out, because there's lots of information there, and just kind of helps me organize my thoughts.
Hmm.
So there you go.
So fun with spreadsheets.
Yes, it's probably the either the most one of the more less exciting episodes.
Well,
Unless you are
I get mocked
you're really good.
always for it, right?
Yeah, I'll probably get mocked
And
now too that my secret's out.
well, and then a while ago, Miss says, "Can I have a copy of that spreadsheet?" I said, "Sure. Send me something to remind me." And haven't heard anything, so she really doesn't care, I guess. But um, after all the mockery I got, she wants one.
It helps. The overarching theme with spreadsheet notes is organizing your thoughts. Um,
Right.
and the reason why I find that to be helpful is, one, I don't have to remember all that information,
Mm-hmm.
because Lord knows the more things I have to remember, the more things I start forgetting. And there's plenty of things I keep forgetting anyway, so I don't need more stuff to forget. The other nice thing is, it's just kind of a trick that a lot of people do anyways for anything, is, keeping a notepad by your beds. If you wake up and you want to take a note, write a note down, so you're not trying to remember it or hold on to it later and then forget about it. So it just kind of helps me enjoy the game and figure out what I want to do with certain things. So it makes it a little easier, as it were.
I think so too.
So I'm actually going to change some of the colors so that they all match. All right, so there you go. There is our talk on spreadsheets. Hopefully you find it useful and not too dry. But consider taking a few notes. It might help you figure some things out or keep track of what gear you want and therefore what you want to run. We will get into game news. There is a bit of it this week since we have update 36 hit live. And like I said, the show notes are, or not the show notes, the release notes are extensive. There's a lot of information. So I'm going to try and hit the highlights. Saba, if there's one that you want to talk about or that I skip, feel free to chime in
Okay.
so we get some in here. So update 36 release notes. We kind of went through some of these before. The Mines of Tethyammar, free to VIPs, level 15 on Heroic, level 31 on Legendary. It's 5 new quests and a new public area. You speak to someone in the west of the town square in Evening Star to get there. And there's a quest arc there as well. Let's see, airships. Several airship amenities that did not have descriptions now do, so they can help that. You can get to the Hall of Heroes from there. We talked about that. Let's see. Artificer had a whole bunch of stuff changed, which we kind of talked about a few weeks before, but they kind of took a bunch of stuff out of the Battle Engineer tree and just gave it to Artificers in general. And
So what do they do with the battle engineer tree?
They gave a lot of other buffs, which we also talked about a little while back. But I'll try to cover some of them. You can now use warhammers and light hammers as archers. They get proficiencies, and improved critical bludgeoning has been added to their feat list. I don't know that we'll see a lot of builds out of that, but it's another option, and it kind of helps a little bit. They fixed some stuff with rune arms, so they kind of updated the spell power for rune arm shot, or they made them scale like they want them to, is probably more accurate way of putting that. They also made the rune arm weapon imbues scale with 200% melee or range power. Just kind of brings that in line with some other stuff that other classes have. And they tweaked homing on the rune arm so that it should work better, or at least at the same angles that you can fire a crossbow, which was kind of problematic. So other stuff. So warlocks. The warlock nerf has landed. Warlocks now only get a total of 6d6 damage for the Eldritch Blasts at level 20.
So what did they get before?
9d6. So they took 3d6 out of the Eldritch Blast that Warlocks get in Heroics. They put one of those d6 into the Epic Eldritch Blast feat, which now gives 3d6, and they put 2d6 into the Epic Arcane Eldritch Blast Destiny feat. So you can still get the same number of damage, but you have to take it as feats. So it basically spreads that progression out farther, so it takes up till level 26 to get all 9d6 instead of level 20, and it will cost you 2 feats to get there as well. If you weren't taking the feats before, you will lose 3d6 damage with each shot, which is not insignificant. They also, let's see, the Eldritch Burst, instead of doing 3d6 lightning damage, now does 1d6, and the Spirit Blast does 4d6 light damage instead of 10d6 light damage.
It says additional. That's not a light damage.
So when you do those
adding?
two abilities, they.
I'm reading this differently than you then.
Well,
so if it did 3d6 before, additional light damage is now 1d6. I would have thought it was 4d6, but I guess I'm reading that wrong.
No, so what it's referring to is when you do those bursts, it does your Eldritch Blast damage plus an additional light damage.
Okay.
Which was before the lower one was 3d6, which got toned down to 1d6. The other one was 10d6 and went down to 4d6.
Wow.
So
that's huge.
Yeah, no, those got significantly toned down. And then the Retribution light damage went from 1d6, 2d6, 3d6 to 1d4, 2d4, 3d4. So it's much less of a nerf, but.
Okay, but overall, because warlocks were kind of overpowered, right?
Yes.
Are they more in line with the next class and how much damage they're going to do? Or are they
that's
still
hard to
over
say.
number one?
The dev said that they considered it to still be significant. I don't know. Like, I haven't really played my warlock since then, and really what they wanted to do, the main impetus was that's too powerful in heroics, which was kind of the big problem.
Well, yeah, because I did on Karen, she did a bunch of racial TRs, and she was a warlock for all of them. She did 9 or 10 or something like that, and it was really easy running through all the quests as a warlock.
Yes. And that's what they wanted to. And I think really the racial reincarnation kind of brought this to a head because a lot of people were basically using warlocks to cruise through some of this content. I don't think it's necessarily going to. I mean, it'll slow people down a little bit. I don't think it's going to make a very large dent in how fast a large portion of people can actually play through some of this stuff. But these are not insignificant changes, that's for sure. I mean, the bursts got toned down by 30 to 40%. So right. It's a lot. Actually, the Eldritch Blast got toned down by 30% as well at level 20. So some serious stuff there. Let's see. Persistent spells from enemies will now have a red circle visible to players, so you can understand what their borders are. I'm pretty sure it's still gonna lie, just based on my experience with traps and how, like, I get killed and I look at where my soul stone is and where the trap is, and
Right.
it's like these two things do not match. Someone disagreed here and I lost. So this was an interesting one, and this brought up a lot of talk. So the note is party scaling. The party scaling curve for warlocks has been adjusted to better reflect their contribution strength, which confused a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So what this is, and I wasn't actually really fully aware of this before either. So the dungeons scale to a certain extent, right? Depending on the difficulty. Part of that is based on how many players you have in your group. Part of that is based on what characters or what classes those party members have, which is the part I was not really fully aware of. Now, in further
Is
reflection,
that
when I
written
read,
somewhere?
yes,
Because
it
because
was,
I
but
only
I don't think
remember.
many people caught it. It was one of those things like if you read it and have that understanding that the scaling curve is determined by what classes are in the party, you can see how it reads that, or at least I could read it and say, oh, I see what they're saying there. Before, I didn't really have the understanding of how it was worded.
Okay.
In any case, the reason why this is happening is it's not that they were making it harder. It's that someone randomly found that, oh, warlocks aren't scaling like they should be. Let's make them
So it was
more in line
easy?
with what they should be. Right. It was too easy. So if warlocks were intended to, so let's say that all the classes other than warlock were somewhere between a 1 and a 1.2 scaling. And these are false numbers. They have no meaning.
Right.
They're not actual numbers. Let's say that for the sake of argument and example, the classes were scaling between 1 and 1.2, and warlock was scaling at like 0.6. So the way that I understood this is they raised the warlock to be more in that window of 1 to 1.2. I would assume the higher end, but they didn't actually give us a hard number on that.
So no, this is just a what if. So they obviously have an idea of which characters do contribute what kind of strength to a party.
Sure.
So they know which characters they think are better than other characters. Based on that, right? Because they upscale the
Potentially.
quest. So are they going to work on the ones at the lower end?
So the way that I kind of read between the lines on this is it's not to say that there's a lot of disparity between the different classes in terms of the party scaling curve. It's
So
more
you're
like it's adding a cleric to your party won't increase the scaling as much as a fighter, but it's probably, I kind of got the impression that it's really not very much difference.
okay. So it would have to be that way, otherwise people would only play certain classes and have an easier time going through if they could figure out what the formula is, right?
And it's important to note too that on Elite the scaling curve is very small. It doesn't. There is a difference between on Elite with how many characters you have in your party, but it's not as much of a difference as in normal. So what I mean by that is if you take one group of 3 people and one group of 6 people. On normal, the group of 6 people will have a noticeably harder dungeon, more monsters, higher hit points than the group of 3. On Elite, that difference is almost negligible, or nearing negligible. It's not as much. It's still there, but it's much less pronounced. They scale it automatically. In Elite, they scale it higher automatically,
right.
anyways.
So what about Reaper? That's going to be the same as Elite?
I'm not sure. I don't know if they've actually said much in there, but I would assume it would be similar to Elite and similar to Raids, which both of those, again, Raids don't really have scaling. They kind of, quote, scale up to the high end of what it could be. Same with Elite. It So let's say on normal you could scale between a 1 and a 10. Again, artificial, arbitrary numbers. So on normal you could scale between 1 and a 10. On elite, and this depending on your party makeup, number of people, party class composition, stuff like that. On elite, you're only going to scale between like 8 and 10. So that's kind of the idea.
Right. I'm still not happy with the contribution strength thing at all, because what if you make a off-the-wall character that they haven't even thought of and they think you're pitiful?
I don't know. And again, the way that I read between the lines on this is, I got the impression that there's a difference between how much a cleric contributes to a party scaling curve, and a difference between how different number for a warlock contributing to that, and that is different than a fighter from that. But those numbers are so close together, you probably wouldn't notice the difference too much.
So the only reason they had to adjust it was because it was just so whacked out of scale.
Right.
Okay.
That was how I took what they were writing. Enhancements. A whole lot of enhancement changes. Mostly fixing stuff, getting the DC descriptions to be correct, making sure stuff benefits with the correct DC bonuses and stuff like that. So I'm not really going to go through that too much. Also, the artificial battle engineer pass got in there. Same thing with kind of Epic Destinies. There's some stuff that got updated tooltip wise and kind of made to work correctly. Nothing really functionally changed. It's just kind of fixing things. This one I like. Feats. Artificer, Bard, Barbarian, and Monk-specific class feats now have a feat in the feats panel. Like Warlocks.
That was a great idea. Except I noticed under the Monk one, if you have your Monk one with a plus next to it, so you haven't opened it up to see everything, the very first thing listed under it is the light damage thing that a monk does.
Oh,
so it's not in the
lighter
monk
dark
feat
path.
things. Yeah. So I think it should be in the monk feat thing. That's just personal.
I would like it if they further did it so that it was like, because at the top there's like epic feats, there's a tree for epic feats and stuff like that.
Right.
If they put class feats at the top of that, so it didn't have to alphabetically search for these different
I think
feats.
you're right. Yeah. They might
Kinda
get to
nice.
there.
Let's see.
I like that all proficiencies now
Yeah.
appear under one proficiency feat as well.
Same idea,
Yep.
basically. Let's see. Fix some feats. I always liked it. The burst of Glacial Rat's freezing effect is no longer considered to be a mind-altering effect. Good. Probably shouldn't be. When equipping items, the higher of minimum level and absolute minimum level is now taken. There was a way to kind of break items. So you could actually wear items that would have like an absolute minimum level of 18 at level 2. I have no personal experience with this at all, clearly. So they kind of fixed that. They also have, rune arms now also have absolute minimum levels equal or near, in the case of craftable rune arms, to the minimum level they appear. This is just preventing situations where rune arms could lose their minimum level based on crafting. Let's see. Certain crafting keyed copies of Wayland and Stormhorn's masterful craftsmanship weapons and accessories have had their lost minimum levels have been restored, depending on their effects, which is probably good because I had a set of goggles that were like intelligence plus 10, resistance plus 10, and they had no minimum level on them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's kind of silly. Let's see. Fix a bunch of borders on items.
I like the heroic and racial reincarnation hearts have been renamed to avoid confusion. They are now named Heroic True Heart of Wood and Heroic True Heart of Blood. I think it should be totally different.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessary.
Because people are still going to see, Heroic True Heart, and buy it.
Yep. It'd be nice if the icons were drastically different. Or something like that, something to that effect, but yeah. Or, I don't know, maybe let's just get rid of hearts in general and just buy the flagging from the reincarnation grove or something like that. Probably be a little easier, in my opinion, but...
That's a good idea. Put it in the suggestion box.
If I was going to put things in the suggestion box, then I'd start with other things first. Let's see. What else is going on? Items that are supposed to drop on leaving an adventure now properly do so. That won't be. Have you ever like gone through your backpack like an hour later or days later, like, oh look, I
Here it
still have
is.
Hetman Jag's notes.
Yep.
Don't need
Toss.
those. Let's see. The Sharn Syndicate and Heroic Red Fens items were boosted. They all kind of got a pass and can do a lot more stuff. Not more stuff, but they got more stuff. So they're not upgrading the old items. There's actually a debate on this. It's like, well, shouldn't they upgrade all of them? Or is it just all, or it's only the new ones? Like, well, it's just the new ones. Why is that, you might ask? Well, here's your answer. So these are all essentially new items that are dropping in place for the old items to drop. This is both the quickest and least risky way to go about updating old items, as it doesn't involve applying changes to all characters' items upon login, which is risky and time-consuming from a QA side. Nor does it require us making a separate recipe for each and every item they alter in the Stone of Change, which is time-consuming on the dev side. It just so happens the dev side motivations for altering old loot, making a wider range of content appealing to run, lines up with the quickest and least risky way to implement it. Basically saying that, they want you to run want you to run
Right.
content, even if it's old content. So if they make new loot for it, you might want to go run it. They also, in doing this, they made a lot of these the same scale or reference the scaling effects, which is different than what we were just talking about, because right now they can and anything that's got is referencing the scaling effects. So basically all the new random loot and newer named items. If they change what that reference is, then it changes all the other items retroactively, right? As opposed to what they had to do before was all these items were unique items, and they would have to go in and apply a different attribute. Even if it was like strength plus 5 versus strength plus 6, you'd have to apply a different attribute and then have a script run through everything, every character on login. It's kind of a mess. Basically, they only want to do that if it's a problem. Case in point, minimum levels missing from items. So that's one example where they would have to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going on there. Let's see other fun stuff. They tweaked monster AI, so hopefully it'll kind of do some stuff there. They fixed an issue where monsters who phase out of combat sometimes reappear as a champion, which is really annoying because they get healed. On top of that,
I'm not sure I ever noticed that.
I did.
Well,
Race
I get
were
annoyed
pretty bad.
fighting phased out monsters anyway, so I
There's that.
probably kind of zone out going, let's beat this thing down quickly,
Yeah, I can understand that. Let's see other stuff that's going on.
Hey, they fixed that thing I talked about on the damsels several episodes
What's
ago.
that?
Public areas and taverns no longer report that they are regenerating XP debt.
Yeah. If you still have XP debt, I would be amazed, because
Yep.
even if you didn't log in, it should have recovered by now. Maybe it may not be able to recover all the way, but it should be pretty darn close. See, you can share the Epic Orchard and the Gnomeworks quest now. That's kind of nice. They also increased the hit points on Infernal the Dam's portals. Now it might seem like a bummer, but really what they're trying to do there is avoid a double teleporting. So if they're had so few hit points, you'd get teleported to the side, and then you might be in the middle of casting a spell,
Oh, right.
like an energy burst, and then you end up back on the same side you started from, where you don't want to be. So, let's see other things. Some of these we mentioned a couple weeks ago too. To curse the skies, investigate the giant device optional no longer gives XP. The quest now gives approximately 20% more base XP. That's to prevent farming. That's really all
Right.
that is there.
Anytime they fix that kind of stuff, it's to prevent farming.
And they keep adding
How-
more of that. That's the
Yep.
funny thing. Let's see. A bunch of fixes and stuff. XP on Dead Girl's spellbook has been raised, and the quest is now marked as very long in the quest UI. That's nice. This is kind of a similar thing. The optional objective in Talk Your Way Past some dude in Belly of the Beast no longer grants the bonus XP. The base XP of the dungeon has been raised. Same idea. The optionals of slaying the first two named guys in the Shadow Crypt no longer grant base XP. The base XP of the dungeon has been raised. Same thing.
Right.
Let's Let's see. Drow and Deep Gnome spell resistance is now a flat 6, and now stacks with other sources of spell resistance. Drow enhancements that increase spell resistance stack with all sources as well. Which I think is a change from what they said they were going to do. They just made it... they probably just toned down what you could get out of it. Let's see. Skills in the character sheet and level up panel now sort differently. Basically, they sort if you've assigned ranks to them and they're then
That's
they go to the
awesome.
top. If you don't have assigned ranks in them, they go to the bottom.
No more scrolling. Well, it was, one level at a time, not too bad. But when you're TRing and having to do them all at the same time, what a pain.
But yeah. Guild buffs can now be hidden on screen. The option can be found on the Options UI under a checkbox called Hide Guild Buffs.
I know a lot of people were asking for that. I like
It
to see it
doesn't
tick
suck.
down.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they would could consolidate it into one buff. That'd be better. But I can live with this. Let's see. A bunch of typos. And there you go. There's the release notes. So a
Lots.
lot of stuff.
Have you played the new quest yet?
No.
I think we're going to do it on the Damsels this weekend.
Nice.
So you'll hear our screaming because we have no idea what to expect.
Sometimes that's the best way to play.
It is.
There's also we'll link to the webpage for all the new items. So if you want to get the stats for them, and if you want to look at the new looks, Cordovan made a post, a page. He's been doing this for a while now, but he made a page that shows what they all are, which is pretty nice. So it saves a little bit of work on the end of the people trying to fill out the wiki, who I guess it was oftentimes Jerry anyways, or they would ask him for that information, so he's kind of just giving it to the public now, which seems to work pretty well. I don't think I've seen anyone complaining that he's giving us that information. So
No.
let's see. Is there anything else to talk about? Not wise. There was a preview video. We'll link to that if you want to watch that. The Duel, the Underdark preview video with the devs on the weekly Wednesday live stream. And I found that this was a bug, and I kind of pulled this out because I thought it was hilarious. There's a rune arm from the Titan raid, which probably maybe 5 people a server have, based on how often people run the Titan raid. The rune arm for Titan's Fist, it was fixed. It now gives +6 to intelligence. Usually this is not retroactive. However, in this case, the rune arm was previously granting +6 intelligence to itself. Now it's giving it to the players, so it should be working for... You shouldn't have to reacquire it. It should just be working now. I just thought it was funny that the rune arm was giving +6 intelligence to itself.
So if the spells based off the rune arm were intel based, it was doing more damage than it should have done.
Possibly,
Kidding.
yes. Or it had a higher DC, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But only if it was referencing the item's intelligence as opposed to your intelligence, so...
Right.
There's problematic stuff there. DDO bonus days. Double commendations of Valor and a +10. This is the wrong one. This is from last week.
That's from last week.
Yeah, it is from last week. I know I wrote it down. I shouldn't write it down there, apparently. So I will skip that for the moment and do store sales. The sales for this week, improve your character. You get 20% off of select stat tomes, skill tomes, tomes of learning, Harper H enhancement tree through July 20th. Also, the summer sales for the week. There's some good ones here, so pay attention. 35% off of Deep Gnome Iconic. If you don't have that, good time to get it. 50% off of the Veil of Twilight Adventure Pack, and Sovereign Guild Elixirs. Can you name a adventure pack that you should get before the Veil of Twilight, if you could only pick one?
For Giant Hole?
Yeah, that's about the only one I can think of. Veil of Twilight is a very good pack, so we strongly recommend that one. 50% off is awesome. Let's see. Also, and please pay attention. If you do not have this, buy it now. It will almost certainly never be less expensive than it is right now. Epic Destinies are 75% off.
Right.
If you
That's a great sale.
if you don't have Epic Destinies and you're playing in Epics, I don't know if there's a really polite way to say this, but what are you doing? Get Epic Destinies. If you are a new player and you haven't gone to Epics yet, get this now. It's 75% off, which means it's like 250 points, somewhere in that range, I think. If there was one thing that you should buy for your character, it's this. I mean, you only have to buy it once, and it affects all your characters, but Epic levels without Epic Destinies is very disheartening. It's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without peanut butter or jelly or bread. It's like having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that's just the crusts. It's terrible. You want Epic Destinies, and they're 75% off, so get them now. Did I sell that well enough?
You did. I can't imagine doing Epic stuff without them.
Yeah, it's really 99% of leveling as an Epic character is in Epic Destinies. So, very nice to have.
All right, I looked up the bonus days for you. Plus 10 treasure hunters boost.
Yes. I should just finish getting that page loaded. That's why I skipped it. See, the freebie for the week, you can get a lasting potion of resist fire plus 10. You can get 5 of them with the coupon code say no to fire. I do not necessarily recommend getting those. I don't recommend not getting them, but
if you do your daily dice rolls, you're going to get some of these, right?
I don't think so. You might be able
They're
to,
not
but I
in it?
never get them. I haven't gotten any for a long time. I think the only ones I had is I got one of these coupons, and I ended up throwing them out like a year later. I just never use them. So, I mean, look, they're not terrible for lower levels. I'll be honest. They can be pretty decent down there. At least if you die and lose your ship buffs, kind of a thing. So, I just don't I don't buy these for any reason. But the free ones are not bad. I'm just not as excited about them as other things that come in there.
Right.
Like 75% off of Epic Destinies. Go buy those now. Yeah.
You can't stress that strongly enough.
No, you really can't. I mean, if you buy one thing out of the store, only one thing, even more so than content, I'm going to tell you to buy Epic Destinies if you play that far. So, although I would say, kind of a sidetrack on stores. One thing that's always kind of bothered me is you can't buy a trial pass for content. Like, you can have someone else buy a guest pass for you.
Oh, yeah, isn't that funny?
Which, okay, sure. I guess then they have the content, but I feel like they could, do a little more business if they were like, you can buy this content for an hour, and if you, and then, if you could figure out the coding, what I would say is sell a pass that you can buy yourself that gives you access to that content for an hour, and if you buy the content while that buff is still running, you apply that cost to the cost of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that would drum up more business, but what do I know? I'll tell you what I do know. Buy Epic Destinies. All right, community news. Moving right along. The 242nd Chronicle. Let's see. The DDO fashion competition is complete. So you can get the link there to see the winning pictures. Wow. Impressive pictures, let me tell you. If you want to see how beautiful the game is, go look through that thread. Emmanuel is offering DDO videos in Spanish, and that's cool.
Nice.
They have a recent Beyond the Rift run. Let's see, the Elite Raiders of Kyber, I know several of those people, go toe-to-toe with a Reaper, so you can check out that page as well. The guild for the week, the Iron Empire, is a level 19 guild in Orion with 8 active accounts. We're looking to grow. It's probably a very new guild, since they're only level 19. We wish them luck. The comment for the week, if you had to choose, would you side with the dwarves or the drow? I'm going dwarves.
Dwarves.
I mean,
yeah.
Drow tend to be evil, don't they?
Evil, they do, yeah.
That's just
except
not
for the most famous drow, but still.
Sure. They tend towards evil, we'll say. So.
Yeah. I would go dwarves.
Not necessarily the people you would want to side with.
Don't say that to Mithri, though. She likes
it's a tendency. Hey, Drow make great bards and warlocks too.
And
Uh,
warlocks, yeah.
see, we got a shout out for DDOCast for our tips to avoid the grind from a couple weeks ago. There was no Chronicle last 2 weeks ago, so this is just this week's. DDO Players News had their latest episode, 139. They actually have had episodes 138 and 139 came out since our last show. Streaming with even heads to the Underdark. Mickey celebrates her 100th against the Demon Queen
Oh,
raid.
wow. Nice.
Yeah. Wounds DDO ran the new adventure pack, and Dirty William runs on Wayfinder, so you can check all those out. Let's see. Also, Axel, who's been on the show a few times, had a fun little video on why do we play MMOs. Why do you play MMOs, Sahba Jade?
Well, I played this one because it's D&D based, and Myth and I needed something to do. Well, she got me into it, but it was something we did after this Star Trek Online game we played together years and years ago.
That explains why you play DDO, but why do you
MMOs?
play
Well,
it?
because I get to get online and talk to people.
Play games and have fun?
Yeah.
With people? These are all
With
great
people,
things.
yeah. Yep.
People make games more enjoyable.
And I've met so many people that I will never meet in real life that are really cool. And it wouldn't have happened if there were no MMOs, right?
It's true. Let's see, other stuff going on. The Damsels of DDO had their 71st episode. You realize that the Damsels are a senior citizen now, right?
We are?
You're over 65, right?
Okay.
You're eligible for retirement. That
would be great in real life.
Getting paid to not work is not terrible, that's for sure. Mickey's Delirium had a post on more Reaper, talking about more Reaper mode. Let's see, DDOCast news. DDOCast Splat is back. We played last Tuesday. Actually got several comments on the video. I was quite shockingly surprised that, and people really enjoyed watching us.
Who's part of your DDOCast Splat this time around?
Bitter. I don't want to try. Arcat. And what is the other name? Fennicus, I think or is that the other guy? There's another guy whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. Or his character
He
name.
apologizes.
I do apologize. But we've got a group of 4 to 5 people going right now. But we did Jungle's Vaughn 3 and 4, and we did the entry quest to Vaughn 3 on Reaper 2 Skulls, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to the end, and there was suddenly 3 or 4 Reapers and 10 champions. All the soothsayers were champions, so they were just healing each other up really fast. It was a bit of it took us probably about 3 times as long to just do that little end fight that it takes most people to actually get through the whole startup quest. So it took a little doing. Also, our Summer Scavenger Hunt Extravaganza 2 is out. So if you want information on that, there's a forum post that I'll link to. It's a pretty simple game. You take pictures of things in the game. I mean, it's a scavenger hunt, so you have to find things. Some of them are easy, and some of them are harder. There's a lot of great prizes, including some autos boxes, some DDO points, a bunch of fun stuff there. But yeah, it's just a long scavenger hunt. People really enjoyed it last time, so I brought it back. So that's going through Labor Day, which is the first Monday in September, for those who don't know what Labor Day is and live outside the U.S. Also, in DDOCast news, the website is going to be going through some maintenance this week. It should start Tuesday night. It may affect the website for up to 72 hours. We don't anticipate the website dying or going away during that time frame. It just might be slower. Is my information on that. So, also Gen Con. If you're going to Gen Con, you can gather for buffs. We'll link to the page for that if you want to find out when people are meeting.
Are you going to Gen Con?
No, I am not going to Gen Con. I am not actually big on conventions, to be honest.
We're all
probably because I don't have to go with people.
We're gonna get together next year for Gen Con.
Yes.
Myth, Cad, Lessa, Rent, Drac.
Maybe someday, but
Tay.
I've gone to PAX because it's in my backyard.
Right.
And I don't know. I got bored in a couple hours, so I don't know. Maybe one day. Not this year though. Let's see. That will bring us to our lightning boast. And a couple people commenting. So this actually came from episode 473. We were debating Reaper mode. Ray posted, says, as a new player, he can say that power creep is a major concern of his. With every new hamster wheel of new, more powerful things you can get, it turns off new players to the game. He likes a challenge, but the Reaper reward just seems like something else that I have to work towards right after my 2-year grind for past lives. In his opinion, old players are going to be there, but if you want any new players to stay, you need to stop the new carrot on a stick stuff. Which I think is a very, very valid point. It definitely, furthers the gap, right?
Yeah, I would think it was valid if it was a PvP, but it's not. So it could take you 5 years to get to where Patrick is today, but it doesn't matter if it takes you 5 years to get there because you're not competing against Patrick, right?
Well, I'm competing against Patrick. I don't know about everyone
Well,
else.
you are, but a new player is not. They should just go, not worry about how powerful you are. Just play the game, slowly get to be able to do more and more and more and have better gear and more past lives and not even think about it as a hamster wheel or that the carrot keeps moving.
I like what you're saying. The one thing I would say, kind of in response to that, kind of as a devil's advocate, is that sounds really good, but in practice, there's definitely some people who don't want to play with people that can't, quote, keep up with them. So
Well,
if you're having that wider gap, then you're gonna have.
But there are also people who will take anybody. I know when
Oh, sure.
I'm playing with Martel and Zazo, first 3 people to hit the LFM are in the group. We don't care who they are or how powerful they are or anything. When Lessa and Mytha and I actually put up an LFM, it's the same thing. The only caveat is they have to be within the level range that we want.
Sure.
So there are both types of groups out there, the ones that will not take you if you're not powerful enough, and the ones who don't care and will help you through. I know I used to play with a guy from California who he was really good and he ran around with really good people, and every time I was on, he's like, come on, join us. And it's like, I'm not in your league, dude. He's like, it doesn't matter. Let's go. And it was really nice. If I hadn't known him, though, I don't think I would have gotten to those groups. There are people that will play.
I mean, I think that there's great points on both sides of this equation. I think the thing that kind of comes in, though, is there's always going to be a gap. Right. It doesn't matter what the gap is and how it is. There's always going to be incremental increases in what players can do. That's how they drive the game forward.
Right.
Now, we're talking, racial reincarnations and Reaper mode are pretty big steps in that. But so is, there's certain points in the game where we've gone from large jumps in gear and stuff like that, which gear is a little bit easier to kind of mitigate that happening. But the fact of the matter is that someone who's played the game for 10 years is going to be farther along than someone who has only been playing for 2 years. And I don't know how you design a game that is at least an MMO where you can get around that. There has to be that quote finish line or
there has to be progression for the older people. Yeah.
You have to keep progressing what players can do and get and be, or they're going to feel like they've quote won and they're going to stop playing. So I think the point is very valid. There's certainly a concern there, and I share the concern with this. There's a divide between new players and veterans, and that includes myself. There's things that veterans can do and longtime players can do to mitigate that. But I think from a game design standpoint, that's going to exist, period. It has to, or people wouldn't play the game. People would finish it and stop playing. So I don't have an answer, but I think the point this guy was making, the points that you were making are great points on both sides of that. So it's a challenge. It's probably one of the harder things that they have to figure out how to do, right? And when talking about game balance and
Yeah, I don't think there is a right answer because it's going to be just as you explained.
It's gonna be there.
No, the older people are going to leave if there isn't more. And the new people, I think they just have to get into their mindset, stick it out, play the game, enjoy the game. Don't, calling it a grind just is not the right way to frame it in your mind either,
If you want
right?
tips on avoiding the grind, listen to our last week's show or 2 weeks ago. Just saying. Um, yeah, and look, I would say too, don't be too discouraged. Everyone was new at one point. It will take you less time than you think to catch up. Now, there's certain
Right,
areas that you won't really catch up in, um, and that's okay. But think of me, I've been playing a long time and I have a lot of characters, and I don't have anyone who's got any completionists that can even take completionists, and not by a. When I say that, I mean not by a long shot. Like it's not even close. Um, I might go for one now, but uh, so it you don't necessarily like, those carrots can be nice, but it's not to say that you can't run with the people that have those and can't keep up even without
right.
having some of that stuff. Um, now, gear you're gonna need to get some gearing and stuff, and there is Reaper mode is a different animal than past lives because of how many. If you've got a lot of Reaper action points, you can get another 200 hit points in running in Reaper mode. So I understand what you're saying there for sure, but I don't want you to be discouraged either. You can get most of the way there, and you can be okay, and you can run with those people, and not be. Or at least if you find one of those people that's a butthead and puts you down for it, don't run with them. Eventually, they'll
Right.
run out of people to run with, and they'll get bored and leave. So
You know what a good thing to do is if you're new, you have been playing just a little bit, and you have an idea of where you want your characters to be, what you want them to be able to do, make a spreadsheet.
there you go, and to go focus on that stuff too, right? Like believe me, if you want to talk about that kind of disparity there, I guarantee you there are countless hours I have wasted on each of my characters for gear that I don't use anymore.
Right?
That's part of the reason why I stopped going too crazy. I still track gear, but I stopped like really focusing on gear unless it's really integral to what my character is doing. So let's see. Another player wrote in. Amber Cyan wrote in. Talking about Reaper mode has added a new dimension to the quest with short wilderness areas. It's not an actual Slayer zone in front of them. These quests give Reaper XP, a very familiar one for almost all players. Be the one I was talking about. The Gateway to Kyber in Vaughn 3. You get Reaper XP for running that short little patch of jungle. And then Reaper, the multiple self-healing, Troll Shaman, and their innate regeneration can make it a lot tougher than the usual
That's
grunt
funny.
for any player. Yeah, right? Very timely. Um, what reminded us of the discussion was, when we were talking about Faithful Departed, which has the Shrouded Veil in front of it. There's also the small patch, a little patch of outdoor area called the Path to Madness in front of us right in Cipher. The Shrouded Veil is not actually a quest. The Path to Madness for Virgin Cipher is. He wasn't sure if there was any other ones. Those might be the ones. The giant caves out in Threnel have a similar thing going on. They're short, little dinky quests. There's like 15 mobs in them or something like that.
Right?
But you can get Reaper XP out of those. So there's a
Okay,
couple
cool.
hidden ones there. Our survey question for the week comes from the Weemon on Thalanis. What's the best Korthos quest?
Korthos Town or Korthos Island?
I think the whole thing.
I
Either
like the
one
Dragon
Korthos.
Quest, the end.
Misery's Peak?
Yeah.
It's such a lot of running, though.
It is a lot of running, but
So much running.
it's, yes, get to see a dragon for the first
Sure.
time.
And,
Besides the one that capsized your ship as you're heading to Stormreach.
sure. Man, the best Korthos quest. That's an interesting question. I can't remember what it's called now, but the one that used to be the Low Road, which is the way I
Oh,
always refer to that quest. I can never remember what the name of that quest
yeah, I
is.
don't,
I always want to call it the Low Road.
yep.
That's what it used to be. It's the one that's right outside the island to the left.
You have to jump in the water.
Yeah. Um, I think it encapsulates what D&D is or DDO is. It's a short little quest. It has a bunch of different aspects to it that it later quests are basically going to have a very similar structure, just longer in steps, right? Longer in phases.
Right.
So I like that one. All right. Let's close out the show here. You want to plug the damsels?
Sure. We're the Damsels of DDO, Lessa, Mithri, me. We play every other weekend on Friday night, Saturday morning, 2 a.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to be playing this upcoming Saturday. And then we get on a podcast and talk about it the next day. And it's damselsofddo.com.
It's way more funny than this podcast. It's a lot less dry. Just in general. You ladies have a great chemistry with each other.
We have a good time.
And you have a very good mix of personalities, too. Very complimentary. So
we're very lucky.
Yes, indeed. I'll say thanks to Sahba for joining me this afternoon. Yeah. Great to have you back on the show with me. It's been a while. Just like it was with I think the last 3 times you've been on the show, yeah, you 3 were hosting and I was out.
Right.
So it's great to have you back on the show and chat with you. Thanks for everyone for listening to the show, and thanks to all of the contributors for DDOCast. It's a great group of folks to help me make this show happen, and I really appreciate their help with that. Thanks also to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast, and also to Cyber Ears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com. You can also support us on Patreon if you want to chip in a couple dollars. The scavenger hunt that I'm doing and most of the prizes that are coming from that, the autos boxes, the expansion packs, the starters packs, that all came from money that was donated to the show through these mediums. So I'm not paying myself. There's no cost to hosting this show. So all that money goes to prizes and stuff. So
nice.
Yep. If you'd like to see more of that, that's how to make that happen. You can also hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode or a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us debate, or you just want to say hi, leave us a comment or email us at DDOCast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us as Cast Updates. I am at DDOCast. Sahba Jade is at Sahba Jade. You can follow her on Twitter as well. And if you want to follow the other damsels, at Mithri1 is Mithri, and at Lessa is Lessa. I think I got all those right.
Yep.
Our closing tip for the week comes from Helena on Kyber. He says, potions are your friend. Stock up on them. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your tests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.